Also want me to clap as if to synchronize the audio? I will. I'll do it. All right. Hey, I'm Brandon Williams. I'm the Innovation and Strategy Manager with Eagle County Government up in the mountains of Colorado.
Hey everyone, my name is Lilo Santos. I work for the state of Colorado in the Office of Information Technology.
And welcome to Intentionally Left Blank. It's a show about government talking to government. You know, we've been lucky enough to talk to so many different counterparts and colleagues and people in government and finding out about not only the things that they do that are cool, but the things that they do that are so similar to what we're wrestling with in our government. And so this was an idea where we could just bring those people together, share ideas, share templates, and be able to see what we can break together.
You see a lot of media outlets reaching out to C-level people, so your chief technology officer, your chief information officer, that kind of stuff, but you very rarely see media outlets talking to frontline workers and frontline contributors. So what we want to do is we want to bring those people up to the forefront, talking about the innovation and transformation that they're working on to help move along their day-to-day business.
Thanks, Angelo, for being with us today. I wonder if we could just start off by kind of talking about, who you are, your role, and your experience.
Yeah, first, thanks for the invite. I love talking about this stuff, and there's nothing more fun than finding two public sector guys that love the same thing. So, but I'm Angelo Fernandez. I am the Chief Culture Officer for Eagle County Government. My focus is on people and information. My background is about a 20-year career that spans organizational development and human resources. But my passion is really focused on creating high-trust relationships and inclusive work environments.
Awesome. No, that sounds really cool. And I think like one of the ideas behind this show, right, is the idea of like transformation and innovation at a government level, which a lot of people don't get to see. So, so what are you working on currently that's transformational for Eagle County right now?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is a project that we call Vista. And so essentially what Vista is a community dialogue. And so when you think about Vista, we want people to think about the community, and for us, that's Eagle County. So this dialogue will take stock on where we're at right now and what got us to where we are. The last year has been pretty disruptive, I think, around the entire world. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. And we really need to understand what's important to us and what's going to shape the type of future that we want for Eagle County. So this engagement with the community will help inform local planning efforts. So we hope that's not just for Eagle County, but it's also for our neighboring jurisdictions, the towns, as well as the business community and our nonprofit partners. And so local planning for us right now is our comprehensive plan, which is a master plan, and will help also inform our Board of County Commissioners' strategic priorities. And so a couple of tenets that I think were instrumental in how we designed the process is that we wanted to evolve how the community engages with government. And we also wanted to create a process that had equity and inclusion in mind. And so our goal is to involve the community in policy decisions that affect them on a daily basis. And although nothing can replace that face-to-face government engagement, digital strategies will be a critical tool in how we position ourselves. So, we're using Google Sites as a way of communicating to Eagle County, and we did some branding around Vista, so it looks and feels different. We want it to be more of a humanizing, accessible voice. And then we also want to reach the community through social media and videos, because much of our strategy focuses on storytelling to create that empathy and understanding for our community and understand what's important to them. As many people know, a lot of barriers have been built into traditional systems, and Eagle County is no different from that. And so a lot of times that only allows access to part of our community. And as we've learned through COVID, we understand that certain parts of our community, for us, our main community of color here is our Latinx community. And we've understood now how they engage digitally. And so our community likes to engage, social media like everyone does, but they're also using other tools like WhatsApp that maybe isn't more of a mainstream tool. So we've been engaging our community in those methods. We also know that our Latinx community really values that personal connection and has a historically low trust in government. So we know we got to bridge that gap with more in-person type of engagements, meeting our community where they are and helping build that trust. And so when you combine those two things together, I think you have a real effective suite of tools to increase participation in our process.
That's awesome. That's actually one of the reasons that we wanted to talk to you, because I think kind of your vision and the team's vision around engaging all of the populations in Eagle County and really having that as the impact objective, as the mission-driven focus, and then using the technology to support that is such a great way forward, and I think the appropriate use of technology to achieve tasks and objectives. So if you have like a special lens or you're peering over the horizon, in your role as Deputy County Manager, and specifically with a focus on people, where do you see transformation trends or innovation taking place? What are some of the lessons that maybe we're coming out of this current world that may impact the way in which we look going forward?
That's a great question, Brandon. For me, I look at the workforce, right, and the workplace and our work environment. So I believe that we have to reimagine the way we work. And even prior to COVID, you and I were talking about different ways of doing work here. I did work as a consultant prior, as a gig worker, working in co-working spaces, seeing how private businesses work. And I think that's kind of what's missing out of government sometimes, is what makes work fun. And so over the last year, we know that COVID-19 disrupted the workplace. For Eagle County, we learned how effective a remote workforce can be, but we also learned how maybe detrimental it can be for some people. And so, if government was on one side of the spectrum with more of on-site traditional butts and seats, I think it swung pretty far the other way on the pendulum. And trying to figure out where that sweet spot is, and for me, it's always somewhere in the middle. So flexibility, I think, is really important for leaders to understand, and being flexible to meet what your workforce needs are, because some people are going to want to continue to work remotely in some fashion. I know for myself, I want to work remotely at least a couple days a week, but we also need to make sure that the time that our employees do spend at the office is not just as productive as possible, but it ensures that our teams are building trust when they do see each other. So let's let the core work, let's get that done outside the office when we need alone time. But when we're together, let's collaborate and let's build that trust. Creating more inclusive teams and a culture of belonging is also a top priority for me. And I think our digital transformation initiative and the tools that we've been using are primed to help support these shifts at Eagle County. So a few examples, telework or remote working tools like Google Meet, foundational for us to stay connected as a workforce, but it's also allowing more participation from the community in our public processes. So we're seeing a benefit there as well. Workflow applications like AppSheet are really transforming how we onboard our employees. So we have a couple of, power users, I guess I would say, or gurus with AppSheet, and they're creating these onboarding processes that are creating engagement right from the get-go with our new employees, helping them feel that sense of inclusion and belonging from the start. Project management tools and organization tools like Trello and Asana are also important to helping manage some workflow and helping keep goals and objectives visible for our teams, whether they're on site or remotely. And then using things like Google Currents to help create and support affinity groups at Eagle County that help create that culture of belonging that I've been mentioning, and just letting our employees express who they are and shining that spotlight on our employees, because I feel like we have a really diverse and high-performing team, and I think they need to be recognized for who they are. And just, I think everyone should feel like they can show up as themselves without any barriers.
All right, so that was pretty cool. I mean, I think Angelo and his team's approach towards government was really flexible and dynamic, and I guess right-sized. I mean, if I had 3 takeaways, I'd say the first one was the right attitude from leadership in the front line about the role of technology, right? I mean, technology slotted into kind of how they were approaching the Vista project, how they were approaching, long-term remote work in a really supportive way, as opposed to, we have these tools, so we will use them. I just thought it was a really interesting balance. I think the second thing that I was struck by was Angelo's particular background as a consultant. You can really see kind of infused in the way that he's approaching things. It was, particularly with like the remote work, the technology, the kind of being flexible and recognizing the strengths of being on site versus on site, and how do we balance those going forward. I just thought it was more of an academic consultative way of doing government work than kind of a traditional, very static, this is why we do it that way. I think probably the third takeaway was, I thought it was really interesting when Angelo was talking about the specific use of communications technology, and that they were kind of using data-driven decision-making to go towards alternative tools. Like if you're working with all the different populations, being able to bring in things like WhatsApp and having two-way communications. Government's really bad at doing one-way communications, picking the tools and assuming that if you build it, they will come. And I thought it was really interesting the way that they were kind of, just being more flexible about it. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat, right? So like, first off, love talking with Angelo. That was so eye-opening. Dude's awesome. I love that guy. So my big 3 takeaways were, the first one is the idea of affinity groups, right? Like using currents to gather folks together under an affinity group, as opposed to like a siloed vertical. Like you are in the technology area, so you talk about technology. You are in the finance area, so you talk about finance. But it's the idea of like bringing everyone together to bring out ideas from all sorts of disciplines, right? Because that's the easiest way that we're going to be able to get bigger and better ideas, right? Because if you're stuck in your vertical, that's all you're going to be thinking about. So it was actually kind of to your third point, using apps for the public stuff. So the idea of meeting the public where they're at, I think is really powerful. I think like knowing, like you said, having that data to back up the apps that they're using and where people are like actually, congregating around, is really powerful. And to your other point too, like government hasn't been like the greatest in some cases at social media and outreach, because it's definitely like a one-way street where like, we come in and we'll throw like a link out there to go to and look at stuff, but it's never like, tell us what are your questions, or how can we help you, or anything like that. So
it's still one of the last bastions where Calvin and Hobbes under construction is a legitimate thing to use on the interwebs.
100%. And it is just that 90s angel fire web mentality, right? Right. And then the last thing for me is government employees showing up as they are. The idea of affinity groups, plus like having government folks come in with like fresh ideas and new concepts that aren't necessarily driven by what they are slotted to do in the government, right? So like, as like a finance person, your only pathway here is to talk about money and fiscal stuff and decisions that way. But like you can come in as a fiscal person and bring out fresh ideas to do public engagement, right? Like I think that was super telling, super powerful information.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it really goes to the heart of what kind of culture transformation is about. It's not, it's not just trying to make it a happy, inclusive place. It's also drawing out those skills that are maybe non-traditional for that subject matter expert, and having new blood, new eyes Yeah, I think certainly it's panned out in kind of the creative way that they've approached some of those projects. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, for for us, you and I on this channel, like I think the idea of innovating at a cultural level is just as important as innovating on a technology level, right?
Yeah, I think so. All right, so thank you so much for joining us today. I think we were really excited about not only interviewing Angelo, but where we're kind of going in the future, you know, bringing out some of those creatives that are in government and helping share their kind of journey stories and things that we've learned along the way.
Yeah, and thanks for watching, like Brandon said. If you like what you see, you know where to find us. And then we'd also like to know what you thought, you know, what your thoughts and comments were. You can leave them below in the comments section. You can also put them in the community page for digital transformation. And we're more than happy to converse with you about this and open up some dialogue about what you saw. All right? Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.